Greetings and welcome back to Wolf Kage Los Angeles. Could we be witnessing the beginning of the end for the Federal Reserve? Think about this. Donald Trump just removed Governor Lisa Cook, a Biden appointee tied up in a controversy, and suddenly the central bank, an institution that's been running America's money since 1913, is on shaky ground. That's over 110 years of control. From the Great Depression to the 2008 crash. And now, cracks are showing. Behind the curtain, mainstream media won't tell you how fast this is moving. Mortgage fraud allegations, insider deals, a financial system designed to keep you blindfolded. These are not conspiracy theories. They're headlines buried on page 10. Ask yourself, why don't they want you looking here? Because what's at stake is your money, your savings, your future. And yet, how many people fight against knowing the truth? They scream about transparency, but when someone actually tries to pull back the curtain, they rush to defend the people tightening the chains. That's not by accident, it's propaganda. A fog pumped out daily by corporate media, by rhinos, and of course the radical left. And let's not forget George Soros. Yes, George Soros. For decades, this man has funneled billions into movements and policies that reshape societies in ways you never voted for. From criminal justice reforms that spike crime in cities to global agendas most Americans never agreed to, he's been the dark hand in the background. So here's the reality. Things are unraveling. Exposures are happening left and right, and whether people want to admit it or not, this moment could redefine how America handles power and money. Stay locked in, because what's coming isn't just politics, it's history. Let's go.
Feel the same about federal law enforcement. But the fury may not be fully organic. Fox News has learned that paid protester requests have increased 400% since President Trump announced the federal takeover of D.C.'s police department. The New York Post reports that high-dollar donors like George Soros have pumped more than $20 million into protest groups currently organizing demonstrations in the...
Most people don't realize it, but the majority of protesters you see in the streets aren't there by chance. Many are being paid. Many are being funded, supplied, and organized with military-style precision. Ask yourself, how do ordinary crowds suddenly show up with marching shirts, custom printed signs, pallets of bricks, and the media cameras already rolling? That's not grassroots. That's manufactured chaos. And behind it, again and again, you find the shadowy hand of George Soros. For decades, this billionaire has bankrolled radical movements across America, installing district attorneys who refuse to prosecute crime. Why would he install district attorneys who refuse to prosecute criminals? Today estimates nearly 70% of liberal cities have Soros-backed prosecutors. And what's the result? Spikes in violent crime, revolving door justice, and communities left in shambles. Think about the arrogance. These elites are so rich, they treat society like a chessboard, like a game, moving people around for sport. For them, chaos is entertainment. For us, it's crime in our neighborhoods, it's collapsing trust in justice, and streets that no longer are safe. Now, of course, we have Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is calling it out, directly naming Soros and even saying he should face RICO charges for fueling organized disruption nationwide. And of course, he should. No other politician has dared to say it. Why? Because of the money, because of the power, because of the influence stacked against them. But here's the truth. Without funding, none of this chaos machine runs. Cut the money, and the protests, the crime waves, and the political puppetry dry up overnight. And the rot doesn't just stop there, because just days ago, Trump is talking about and wanting to fire Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook after she was referred to the DOJ for suspected mortgage fraud. You see, Cook, who is a Biden appointee with no serious published economic work somehow, is the textbook figurehead for DEI, a figurehead placed to be controlled by others behind the scenes. She's now lawyered up, refusing to step down, claiming Trump has no authority. Maybe he doesn't. But here's the bigger picture. When unqualified figureheads are installed into powerful positions, you have to ask yourself, who's really running the system? Because it couldn't be them. They're just a face, just a scapegoat. And while they sit there drunk on fake power, the real operators behind the curtain pull the string. This is the level of corruption Trump is staring down, a machine so entrenched it thinks it's untouchable. But for the first time in decades, the spotlight is burning straight through the fog. We the people don't need diversity for the sake of diversity. We don't need figureheads. What we need are people in office who actually make our lives easier. Period. Yet the media pundits keep trying to convince us that just seeing someone who sort of looks like us on TV while they rip us off is progress. You'd have to be insane to believe that. Why would anyone want a mirror image of themselves betraying them in plain sight? But see, that's the illusion they sell. And sadly, many people are buying into it and have bought into it. The good news is, I guess you could say, people are starting to wake up. The fog of the propaganda is lifting. And that's why DEI programs and hollow appointments are now being exposed and dismantled. Of course, we're talking about Lisa Cook at the Federal Reserve as well. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent made it clear. She hasn't once even denied the allegations of mortgage fraud. Think about that. If you were innocent, wouldn't you shout it from the rooftops? Instead, silence. Instead, she just lawyered up, hiding behind the process. Now, of course, I know some will say, oh, she's just exercising her Fifth Amendment rights. That's possible. But if you're being honest with yourself, history tells us that when politicians or bureaucrats stay quiet, it's usually because there's something to hide. From Watergate to the housing crash, silence has often meant guilt. And to me, this looks no different. So the question is simple. How many more so-called leaders will be unmasked as nothing more than figureheads abusing power?
So who is Lisa Cook? She's a Biden appointee who keeps siding with Too Late Jerome to keep rates up. She's also a DEI economist.
I think it was really groundbreaking for the Biden-Harris transition to have as one of its core values promoting diversity. It's not just racial and ethnic diversity, it's not just gender diversity, but also geographic diversity, diversity along so many different dimensions. So I'm glad that there's a focus on it.
Is putting undue pressure on the Fed, and there are people like President Trump and myself who think that if a Fed official committed mortgage fraud, that this should be examined, and that they shouldn't be serving as one of the nation's leading financial regulators. And what we haven't heard from Ms. Cook is we haven't heard her say, I didn't do it. We haven't heard her say, I didn't do it. She just keeps saying the president can't remove her. The other thing, too, that I have called in the recent past for an internal review of all the Fed's operations, and I've encouraged Chair Powell to do this on an internal basis before there is an external review. And this is the kind of thing that needs to be addressed, because the Fed is an unaccountable institution, and its relationship with the American people depends on a high level of trust. And incidents like this puncture that trust. So President Trump is trying to make sure that anyone who serves at this institution has the trust of the American people.
Look, let's be real. If you're caught up in mortgage fraud, you have no business anywhere near the world of finance. That's not just a conflict of interest. Hell no. That's insanity. You are a crook, handling other people's money at the highest level while your own hands are dirty. That's like putting an arsonist in charge of the fire department. And here's the key. Lisa Cook isn't even denying it. She's not saying she didn't do it. She's not saying that's a lie. She's not saying, oh, no, I didn't do that. Her message is basically, even if I did, you can't touch me. Think about that. That's not innocence. That's a form of arrogance that we see over and over and over again from these type of people in these particular positions. And this matters because the Federal Reserve is not some small agency. It's the central bank of the United States. It's the institution that controls the dollar, sets interest rates, and impacts the value of every paycheck and savings account in this country. And the only thing propping it up is trust. The Fed doesn't run on votes. It runs on credibility with the American people. When that's gone, the whole system is at risk. Now, check out what the White House top economic advisor, Kevin Hassett, had to say about this.
Well, the president absolutely has authority to fire a Fed governor for cause. And I think the accusations are serious. And I look forward to seeing the outcome of the dispute. I think that, if it were me and I had made the mistakes on the mortgage forms that are accused, and I would either deny it because it was not true, or I would go on leave until people resolve the matter. And the fact that she's not doing that now suggests that she's being partisan. She's trying to make a partisan stance, which is contrary to the independence of the Fed, really.
Do you believe that she should be presumed innocent, considering she hasn't been found guilty, or do you think she should just take leave?
If I were her in her circumstance, I would take leave right now. I think it's the honorable thing to do.
And who do you think should replace her?
That's something that'll be up to the president.
You know, one thing you have to realize is once people get a taste of real power, political power, financial power, they never want to give it up. It's kind of like the ring in the Lord of the Rings. It becomes their precious. They'll fight, they'll kick, they'll claw before they ever let it go. And when that person is guilty of corruption, the desperation to hold on only grows stronger and stronger and stronger. That's what we're seeing with Lisa Cook. She's not standing tall saying, I didn't do it. No, her position is, even if I did, you can't touch me. That's arrogance mixed with entitlement, the mindset of someone who thinks the rules don't apply. And you see it all the time in this political sphere. For decades, we've watched Pelosi's, we've watched the Clintons, and others skate past accountability because cronies protect cronies. But now the exposure is happening in real time, and of course they don't like it. You see, Trump knows the Fed is untouchable in the conventional sense. By law, he technically does not have the direct power to fire her. But that's not the point. Trump moves differently. He forces the fight into the open. He drags the shadows into the light. And in doing so, he's exposing the Federal Reserve for what it is, an unelected institution funded by taxpayers, yet accountable to no one. And here's the kicker. Right now, there's already an open Fed seat waiting to be filled by Trump's pick, Stephen Meyer. If Lisa Cook is forced out, that gives Trump another seat. Add that up, and suddenly Trump holds a 4-3 majority on the federal board. That's operational control, control over budgets, over research, even the power to rein in Federal Reserve Bank presidents. And let's not forget, Chairman Jerome Powell himself is facing legal headaches, which is why Democrats, of course, are scrambling like an army caught off guard. They brace for an attack from the north, but Trump has troops coming from the east, the west, and the south all at once. It's a siege, and the defenders, they know their walls won't hold. So what do? The same thing they always do. Defend bad behavior, stall for time, and hope me, the American people, are too distracted to notice. But the mask is slipping, and the panic is showing. Check out this clip.
It's really that she did anything wrong, but anything that's being raised pertains to, back when she was a professor at Michigan State, not at the Fed. Normally, firing for cause means that you're drinking on the job or you're stealing office supplies or something like that. It's something related to not doing the job. And there's been no hint of that. Nothing, no one has claimed, even the Trump people aren't trying to claim that she's doing a bad job at the Fed, that she's unqualified or behaving inappropriately. So this is crazy. This is, if I cheated on my third grade exam, should I be fired from my current job? This is completely insane.
So in the last clip, this guy actually tried to argue that mortgage fraud committed by someone who's sitting on the Federal Reserve Board was less serious than drinking on the job. Really? I know the second it left his mouth, he had to realize how ridiculous that sounded. But when you've got no defense, He'll say anything. And of course, right on cue, the Democrats rush to Twitter, X, with their usual copy-paste routine, identical statements, identical talking points, all warning the public that firing Lisa Cook somehow puts your mortgages, somehow puts your retirement, even the whole entire country at risk. That's their playbook. Every single time. Scare the people, spread the fear, and then weaponize that fear to protect their own power. You know, it's almost comical, like watching actors reading from the same script, word for word, as if no one would notice. But the sad reality is, a lot of people still fall for it. Even when you show them side by side collages of these identical statements, they still cling to the illusion because propaganda is comfortable. Not to mention, the hive doesn't like to step outside of the hive. Now, here's where it gets even more telling. Lisa Cook just hired the same attorney Hunter Biden used. That alone should make you pause. And instead of standing tall and saying, I didn't do this, her message is basically, as I said before, you can't touch me. Nobody has the power to remove me. Check out this small clip of what Trump had to say about this.
That Lisa Cook has indicated through a personal attorney that she'll promptly challenge his action in court, seek a judicial decision that would confirm her ability to continue.
That's all right, whatever it is.
Says the Fed will abide by any court decision.
Thank you very much.
You abide by a court decision.
I abide by the court, yeah. I abide by the court. Yes. That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. Vanity Fair, other companies.
Now I want you to watch Elizabeth Warren pretending to be outraged over this scandal. Why is she really upset? Because it stains the Democratic Party in which she loves, in which she gets paid, in which she has become a huge celebrity. And let's not forget, she was one of the architects behind the FHFA after the 2008 financial crash. The agency was created to stop the very kind of corruption we're talking about right now. Mortgage fraud, manipulation, abuse of office. So, for Warren to act shocked when Lisa Cook, Adam Schiff, and Letitia James are being called out for allegedly doing the exact kind of things that FHFA was meant to prevent, it's beyond hypocritical. It's a different level of political theater. She knows it. And deep down, the whole party knows it. That's the irony. The watchdog Warren helped create after the housing collapse has now turned its eye on her own team. And instead of embracing accountability, she's scrambling to save face, as if the rules she wrote shouldn't apply to her side of the aisle. Check this clip out.
Runs the risk of bringing down the whole economy. And understand, it's not that Mr. Pulte is actually using his power and authority. What he's doing is he's using access to individual records of Donald Trump's perceived enemies. And he just seems to be going through the enemies list to see, can he find any place in a complex mortgage document where he alleges someone has had something that doesn't entirely add up. And look, that's all we've got. We've got allegations from a man who's also been making allegations against Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Fed, who's been making allegations about the remodeling of the Fed. In other words, someone who's out there trying to engage in a political hit job. And this just happens to be the data that he has access to. And he's going to see if he can make claims, and that's all they are at this point, claims that someone has violated the law. And maybe that will help Donald Trump get rid of that person and continue in his efforts to take control over the Fed.
You ever notice how the media always says Donald Trump's perceived enemies? That word perceived is a shield because in their world, corruption is normal. If one politician is stealing here, another one is scheming there. So they all keep quiet. It's an unspoken pact. Protect each other, enrich yourselves, and use taxpayers' money as your personal slush fund. But now there's someone on the inside calling them out. An outsider who isn't afraid to shine a light and say, this is wrong. And that's why they're angry, because Trump isn't playing the same game. He's not in it for the kickbacks. He's not in it for the insider deals. And think about this. Anyone who's ever worked the regular job knows there's always someone running a small scam. So how is it that when we get to Washington, D.C., where trillions of dollars are flowing through in and out all day long, every single day, the elites want us to believe that everyone's squeaky clean? That alone should tell you how phony Elizabeth Warren and her crew really are. If they were honest, they'd welcome investigations. Instead, they fight them tooth and nail. Let's not forget, Warren herself claimed to be Native American or to have Native American heritage to advance her career, a fraud the media conveniently swept under the rug. And now we've got Lisa Cook, a woman with no serious background in economics. No serious background at all in economics, sitting on the Federal Reserve Board. Why is she there? What's the real motive? Because it sure is not her resume. Anyway, the story is still unfolding, but make no mistake, the mask is slipping, as we talk about every day. The corruption is starting to show, and the people are waking up. I'm Wolf Kage, and this has been Wolf Kage Los Angeles. Until the next time, stay unwoke. Peace.